Good afternoon. We're here with Jane from Oasis Senior Advisors.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks for coming out and having a chat with us.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to come and just have a quick talk about the industry, obviously how your expertise impacts seniors and helping them transition. So the first question I always like to ask is how'd you get involved with Oasis?
Oh, thanks for that. It's a good question. So I was previously the library director in Wallingford for 10 years, which was a position I really loved. But before that, I was a nursing home administrator and a retirement community administrator, and I had a real pull to work with older adults again. So I started to think about what that might be. What kind of work do I want to do? I looked into a few different things, and it was actually a book that I was reading. It might interest you. It's a book called Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. Excellent. By an HGTV personality. And in that book, he talked about finding out that there were services that helped older adults make a transition into senior community living. And he said, I wished I had known those services existed because I helped a lot of people with those transitions and I didn't do a very good job with it. And I was like, maybe that is what I might want to do. So that was kind of my light bulb moment. Then I looked at options for senior placement and referral services, and I found Oasis. And I really like the Oasis model because our services are always free for our clients. We get paid by communities after a move-in, but a lot of the work we do isn't billable, providing resources and information so that there's never a fee for our clients. And that's the model that I really liked and why we chose Oasis. We'll be 2 years shortly, our anniversary, operating Oasis Senior Advisors.
And that's you and Kevin, correct?
Right. So my husband Kevin and I are the owners, and we have another full-time advisor and a part-time advisor on our team. We're working all of Connecticut except for Fairfield County, where we have another office. So we have a pretty big area that we work within. So.
And in that extensive network, you work with just about all the senior communities across the state.
Right. We work with almost all of them. There are a few senior communities that prefer not to work with referral partners. If our clients ask about them, obviously we're going to give them the information that we have. We might not have as in-depth information on those communities, but we'll share what we have. And one thing I think is important for people to know is that we're not incentivized by the communities. We work with them all in the same way. So we don't get a call from a community saying, hey, what can I do so you send me your next client? Right. We refer clients to the communities that we think are the right match for them. And usually we start out only referring them to a few, 2, 3, maybe 4. Find out if they meet the client's needs. We can always expand it, but we don't want to overwhelm by sending 10, 15, 20 referrals. Let's start with a few and then find out how those communities might or might not meet your needs, and we'll go from there.
And you take it as far as taking them on a tour to these communities as well, which I feel like is, in our experience with Amston, the numerous referrals that we've worked together on, that's the number one part that they've always loved, is that you took that time and you showed them the communities, even if they ended up refusing it in the end. So can you speak to that?
We love to go on tours with our clients. So our process, there's a few things we do. We do a really pretty in-depth intake process where we'll talk with the client either in their home or on the phone, at their local coffee shop, at the library, to find out exactly what they're looking for in a senior living community. So we take the time to really understand, do they have any health needs? What amenities can they not live without? What's so important to them? We want to know the whole person, not just if they need help in the shower. We really want to know the whole person. We find out what geography makes sense, because sometimes people want to live, their doctors are there, their friends are there, but sometimes they might have a child in another town in Connecticut or in another city in the country. We have offices all over the country. So we really want to hone in on geography and then budget. We want to talk about what their budget is, because no one wants to get excited about a community and then find they can't afford it. So we do that, and then when we narrow down what makes sense, we send them, it almost looks like what you'd get from a realtor, client listing services with all the communities that we think, let's take a look at these first. And then we schedule and we go on tours with the clients so that they're not just hearing from the marketing representatives, the sales representatives at the communities, who are by and large terrific, but They're also we're making sure they get their hard questions answered. They're getting more than the glossy brochure information. So if we know they're a foodie, we're going to make sure that they get to meet the cook.
Yep.
If we know that they must play mahjong, we're going to find out from the activities director, do you have mahjong? And if not, are you open to starting it? That kind of thing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
well, speaking to that as well, so a client calls you, they're curious to have you come out and visit with them.
Yep.
What's the number one question that usually you experience that pops up from somebody when they're having that first discussion with you?
There are a couple questions we hear over and over. One, for sure, can we age in place at this community? So I think people sometimes think they're never going to leave their house, and then they find out that they're not living their best life at home, in the home they're at now. It might be too big, it might be too expensive, it might not be accessible. So they want to look at communities, and they really would hope to just make one more move and be able to age in place in a senior living community without having to move again. So they'll want to know, can I get the care in a community that I need now, and can I continue to get care if my needs grow over time? Can I stay in a community until my death and have hospice care brought into me? And so those are really important questions for the clients. Can they age in place? And I would say the second question that follows that might be, what can I afford, and how long will my money last? So we help with all of those topics as well.
Which are the two most polarizing topics to be discussed in that moment, because obviously you can't have one without the other. Right. If you don't have the finances, but that's where, again, your advising team is to come in there and to look at those, as we call them in industry CCRCs. Look to see what would work best for each senior. So. Right.
So CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community, is a special kind of community which typically has an entrance fee, a buy-in fee, which you might or might not get some of it back when you leave the community, as opposed to assisted living and memory care communities, which are month-by-month leases. So we also do a lot of education with people so that they can understand. Sometimes people can't afford a continuing care retirement community with the 200, 300, 500,000 buy-in, but they can get almost everything that they want, or everything they want, in an assisted living community, which is a month-to-month lease. So even sometimes when people can afford the continuing care retirement community, they think, well, I don't want to tie up my money, so let's look at assisted living. So we help people kind of understand the landscape.
And you giving that basis of knowledge also helps alleviate that sticker shock, because typically when you're thinking about a senior community, you're thinking about taking the tour there, the families always have the same reaction when they see some of those pricings, but you are able to educate and realistically paint the picture of what you're able to experience in these communities, and you're not just paying a monthly rate, you're paying for your life and what it involves. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that, there is sticker shock sometimes. The family will say, oh my goodness, that much a month. And then we also have to, though, say, but let's take a look at what's included. So if you're maintaining a house, and then you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to need a new roof, I might need new appliances, my tax bill's going up every year, my electricity bill is through the roof because I need, more heat and air conditioning. So we take a look at assisted living, for example, and say, well, your base rent includes your monthly rent, your utilities, no more tax bill, 3 meals a day, transportation when you need it, both for fun and for medical appointments, a wide range of social activities, a pendant or a pull cord for emergencies, weekly housekeeping and linen service, lots and lots included in that base fee. And then sometimes people say, oh, okay, now I understand. And often people are selling a house, so they've got more in the way of assets from that house sale, which then funds care and living. Sometimes we'll have family members that say, but that's my rainy day fund. They'll have a savings account or investments in the house. That's my rainy day fund. And we might need to say, and it's raining and it's time. In the past, we heard more and more families say, but I'm saving that money because I really want to leave some to my kids, leave that financial legacy. And more families are understanding that that money is for mom or dad for their care. And that's what's most important, is that that money is for mom or dad. It's not necessarily that they're going to not live their best life in a house or a setting that doesn't make sense because they're aiming to leave money to their kids.
There's that bottom line item that we can never put on any contract, which is peace of mind.
Exactly.
And giving somebody, sometimes giving somebody that can exponentially make their life that much better.
Yeah.
And not just for the seniors in general, but obviously for the families as well. So, so I always love to ask, obviously, what's the best time, obviously, when somebody's starting to think about calling for your services? Is there a too early? Is there a too late? Obviously, we know there is. But just touch on when's the ideal time to give you a call, just to start discussing looking at communities.
Well, it's never too early. Right?
Excellent.
So we love to help people understand the landscape, understand the world of senior living resources. One of my favorite presentations to give is Understanding Senior Housing and Care Options, where we go over what's available, what does it cost, where is it located, what's included, and I do that one-on-one with families as well. So that's one end of the spectrum, and we work with people who are planning ahead and want to understand, and we love that. But we can also work very quickly with people who need to make a move soon. So we have actually helped people who were in the hospital or in a skilled nursing facility, and they found out that Medicare is no longer going to cover. The cost of paying privately for a skilled nursing or a hospital bed is, through the roof. Going home doesn't make sense. So we can actually help in 48 hours is completely doable. 24 is a little challenging, but we have done it.
Okay.
To help people find and move into an assisted living community quickly because of an urgent need. So we're really skilled at doing both.
Excellent. And that's again what we always attest to is as early as possible, because the information is free, and it can really help paint that picture not only for the senior but for their families, is to know what to do if something does happen.
Yeah.
So obviously that is a question that always comes up. Obviously with the Medicare and Medicaid options in senior living communities. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? And just
sure. So. Sometimes, along with the sticker shock, people are shocked to learn that Medicare does not typically cover assisted living communities in Connecticut. There are just a couple of exceptions, but they have long waiting lists for Medicaid. But Medicare itself, the Medicare benefit, covers skilled nursing up to a certain point, hospitalization up to a certain point, but not assisted living communities.
Okay.
So I think it's important for people to understand that there are some people that have long-term care policies. Those are very expensive. If you have one, you probably know you have one because you're paying a lot of money every month, and fewer people have them. They typically do cover assisted living communities, though.
Okay.
So we can help verify if somebody has that policy, what's covered, and if the company is sort of hedging on paying, we can also help advocate to make sure if somebody has that benefit and they've been paying all those years, that they can use the benefit. Often those long-term care policies will cover people in assisted living if they need some help. If they're just there for the wonderful meals and the social, it might not cover. But if they need some help with what we call activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, getting to the bathroom, meals, then long-term care will often pay. The question that people ask often is about Medicaid or Title 19, right. So that's a benefit for people who, and it's a state and federal combination, for people whose assets and income declines and they no longer have the funds that they need to pay for assisted living communities. So in Connecticut, Medicaid covers care in a skilled nursing facility for people who need skilled care, but Medicaid doesn't cover assisted living for the most part. There are just a couple of exceptions of some demonstration projects that I mentioned earlier have long wait lists. We do have in Connecticut residential care homes, which are different than assisted living. And people need to be fairly independent at the time of move-in, though they can add some services, including some help with activities of daily living or medication management. And in most residential care homes, as people use their funds, they might then apply for Medicaid or Title 19 and be able to stay in the residential care homes even after their money has dwindled and they're on Title 19.
So in a residential care home community, it would basically be a fully independent, obviously it would differ from a typical senior community that would have a typical staff. So what is the staff difference in a residential care community?
So there's some differences in the communities, but in the residential care homes, they might not have staff overnight, whereas in assisted living, there are residential care aides who are there 24/7. They might not have that in a residential care home. So if you needed, say you had an emergency in the middle of the night and you pushed your pendant, it could be that 911 is called. In an assisted living community, the staff at the community would be the ones who responded. It depends. They're a little bit different from place to place, but that is something that we would want to be sure the clients fully understood, that the level of care is not the same. You can add some care and services in some residential care homes to get, to kind of piece what you need in the way of some care, but it isn't the same as an assisted living community where you'd have a care plan and the staff would be watching after your care needs as they change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I always like to ask one of my favorite questions is your favorite success story. What if obviously this is a very personal business, as we know. We get very attached and sometimes adopted into these families. So I always just like to hear what's your favorite personal experience.
So I'd like to mention two, if that's all right. So one actually is one that we worked together. Where we had a client who is a couple, lived in a big house with a lot of stuff, and they just weren't sure how were they ever going to make this happen. How were they going to downsize into a 2.5 bedroom apartment, which is a big apartment in assisted living or CCRC world. In this case, it was a CCRC. They just didn't really know how they would get there. So at Oasis, we also like to help people get a range of services they need to help them have a successful move-in. So that might be referring to a move manager, or sometimes you refer clients to us, or a realtor, or an elder law attorney. We have a pretty robust directory of services and providers whom we vetted. So in this case, this family was overwhelmed, and it was actually Amston who went in, met with them, helped them, and chime in here if I've got this wrong, but helped them see what they could bring, how much they could bring. People make the mistake, I think, of bringing too much sometimes. Do I have that right?
That is correct,
Yeah. And with the beauty of working with a move manager like Amston is that by the time they're ready to sleep overnight, the apartment looks similar to things they were comfortable with at home. The books are back on the bookshelf and the stereo's put together and things are unpacked in a way that feels like, ooh, this is okay. And
welcome home.
Yeah, welcome home.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's our favorite thing to say before we leave. So excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
So I would put that on my list of success stories because this was a family who was very anxious about their move, and they did it. And they continue to be really happy. Yeah. So another success story I would say was kind of the opposite. It was a woman living alone. Not a very good life for herself, very isolated, struggling to get meals together for herself. But the isolation was really the issue. And we helped her move into a community. She was very nervous about her ability to make new friends. Is she going to find people like her? And she did it. And she wrote to me a nice note. We always check in after people move in, and then we try to follow up at least 30 days after. How are things still going? But in between that initial check-in and 30 days, she sent me a card that I'll treasure forever, and it said, "You saved my life. I am so happy here. I don't know why I didn't do this 3 years ago, which we hear often. Why did I wait so long?
Absolutely.
And that, I will treasure that card forever.
Excellent.
That was really special.
I love to hear that. That's always the question that comes up is obviously when I'm ready, should I call back? But it's always, like you said, it's always good to call as early as possible to really help paint that picture so we can be realistic when the time does arise.
Yeah, and there's no contract to work with us. In addition to being no fee, there's no contract to work with us. So it's never too early. And sometimes we'll talk with people, we'll send some referrals, we'll tour, and they just aren't ready. And that's fine. We're not pushy sales folks that are out there trying to get them to move before they're ready.
Yep.
We work on their timeline.
And I can attest to that as well. The client that we had in Hamden, you worked extensively with her to try to find the right community for her. And she just wasn't ready to move to the community, but we know in the future that you will always be there for her when she's ready, and that's such a great asset to have is that sense of network. So
sometimes we've been in this business almost 2 years, and I get calls from people I talked with almost 2 years ago, and that's fine. We're there when they're ready.
And so how often do you find that obviously the encompassing question is when people think that they're ready to go to a community, and then obviously they get there, and sometimes they do end up wanting to move back home eventually, because that is obviously something that's becoming more realistic in the industry. Some people just don't want to give up. What would you say to somebody in that time frame as far as if I want to go back home, would you think that would be a good idea? Because I know sometimes it's always a suggestion. But
and it really depends on the individual and the family. Sometimes people are coming out of rehab, so maybe they've been to the hospital, then they go for short-term rehab in a nursing facility, and they're not ready to go home. They realize they aren't going to thrive at home, so they'll try an assisted living community, and it gives them a chance to see if they like it. Most of these communities are month-to-month lease, so it's not like you're stuck for a year if you don't want it. And sometimes other people will say, I'm going to try home. I'm going to see how it goes. So we'd love to help people get referrals to home care agencies.
Excellent.
And we work with quite a few home care agencies, and we really like those relationships, because the hope is if we refer them to a home care agency and then they see how it goes, and if it doesn't go well, then they call us and we start working with them again on finding the right community placement. So that happens sometimes too, and that's fine. Sometimes people owe it to themselves to really try. Can I make it work at home?
And family can attest to that. Sometimes they know that they want to do it, and experiencing that. So are there a lot of cases, do you find that there are family members reaching out to you versus the actual seniors themselves, that they've gotten overwhelmed, or they're at that point where they know mom has reached that point with dementia, where she does need to look at that memory care? Yeah,
dementia, or even significant physical needs. And we do work often with adult children of older adults who might not be able to provide the support for the family. There's this romantic notion that, the older adults should move in with the kids, and most older adults don't want that. They don't want to live with their kids. They want to be as independent as possible, whether that's in their home or in a community setting. So it really depends on what's best for the family. Home care can work great for lots of people. Some people shy away from the fact that there might be a 4-hour minimum shift, and that can be hard if you need a little help in the morning and a little help before bed, and you've got somebody who will only come in for 4 hours at a time. That can be hard for people to adjust to. That's one of the things we hear about home care. The other thing about home care is the agencies really do their best to provide good care, but the people who are coming to provide the care, they're only human. They might have issues too. So we always say, if you go with home care and you're in trouble, if your aide doesn't show up, you need to have a backup plan, because that aide could be stuck at home in a snowstorm or have kids that are sick. It's important to have a backup plan if the care is essential for the client to get through the night or get through the day. So,
and that's where I feel like it would be a great asset or almost instrumental for the adult children or somebody else to be there with somebody that is curious when they're, you know, discussing with you, so they can hear those options to say, if not the time being now, but in the future, you know, there's obviously something that they need to be realistic about.
And here's just another example. So I'm working with a family right now where the mom has 24-hour care at home, and she doesn't have the money any longer to have 24-hour care at home and maintain the house. So while it's lovely for her to have 24-hour care at home, it's not an option anymore because the house is her asset, and they'll need to sell the house so that she can move into a community and have the assets to pay for her care. Doing both is no longer an option. But 24-hour care at home is very expensive.
Very, yeah.
So to maintain that plus a house is out of reach for most people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so obviously, you know, as you were talking to being able to recommend and look at people's finances and stuff, that's always the number one thing that pops up in this industry or in today's day and age with technology is security. So obviously you're listening to numbers and this and that and the other. So obviously somebody would want to know, you know, how secure, you know, all their numbers are and all the information is that's going through you, but you being a part of such a wonderful, you know, company. You know,
yeah, I would say that we are HIPAA compliant, meaning that we protect our client's identity.
Excellent.
So when we make referrals to communities, they're not getting bombarded with calls from all the communities.
Excellent.
Our competition doesn't all do that, so I think that's important to mention. And then we do realize that sometimes clients have a hard time if they're moving into a community. They need, you know, that first month's money for the first month care and maybe a community fee, and that can be a challenge. We're fortunate to have a sister community, it's called Elder Life Financial, that can help assign a financial concierge to clients to find out, one, might they be eligible for a benefit called Aid in Attendance, which is for veterans who served during wartime, which will pay for some assisted living costs. So we can find out. Many people don't know about that benefit, and it can add to their monthly income that might make a difference from them being able to afford assisted living or not. Elder Life Financial will also help with bridge loans, short-term loans, specifically for people moving into senior living facilities to help get them through that time when they need to make a placement soon, but they don't have the cash ready, so that they can do that while the home goes for sale.
Bridging between that gap of placing the deposit and then having to have, especially with the private pay, certain private pay communities. So
one of the things we're hearing more and more, which is upsetting and sad, is about older adults who've been scammed out of some of their money. And so money that would have been theirs to pay for senior living and care resources isn't there anymore. And it's really heartbreaking because it can happen to anybody. These scammers are so sophisticated, it can happen to anybody. But for seniors, it's especially, I think they're especially vulnerable. And then they maybe say they need to apply for Title 19 for nursing home care. If they've been scammed out of their money, it makes it even harder for that 5-year look-back process to become eligible for Medicaid. And then they don't have the resources to pay for care that they need. So and I think nobody wants to admit that you've been taken advantage of. And so that people, maybe of any age, are not wanting to report that they've been scammed out of money because you feel foolish. You shouldn't, but people do. So that's a real issue that we're seeing, more so than I would have realized, which is very sad to know that's happened to people.
And we will say in our experience as well, meeting with certain clients, we hear of certain situations like you were speaking of, where they answer the same call every week. It's the same people that are telling them their bill is overdue. But it's also very important to have that in-person meeting to sit down sometimes, because being in the home, sometimes you can see those little things that you can red flag for family members, but also you can make the most important suggestion, which is not just talking to one person, because typically a lot of seniors, they get on the web now, and that first thing that pops up on Google, oh well, they have all the good reviews, they have to be the best. And so that's why, you know, you and I know have left numerous assessments where we've said, but please call somebody else to experience the difference between us and them. So I know that I've had numerous instances where I've had them meet with you, and they knew by the time that they were done that it was the best decision for them to have you come out and suggest and help advise them, even in the case, like I said, right around the corner where she didn't end up going with you or going to a community, but we know in the future eventually there will be an option that's best for her. So, and
I feel the same way about Amston. I know that when I refer a client who needs to make a move, whether it's a around the corner move or across the state or around the country, that they're going to be in the best hands and get great service from beginning to welcome home, which is great.
And we even had the experience of working together with a family member with your mother's home right here in Wallingford. So that was a whole another learning experience as well. So so obviously that's something, you know, that you can attest to is you've dealt with this directly with your own family member. So do you want to touch on your experience? I just want to pause and see what time it is, because she does need to leave at
I think we're
1:47.
We're still pretty good, so okay. So I just wanted to touch base because obviously you know, you have experienced this firsthand with your mother. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it was and I think a lot of people who get into the business that we're in might do so based on experience we have with friends or loved ones who've made some hard housing and care transitions and realize how hard it is to go it on your own to do that. So my mom was living at home and not living her best life at home, I would say. And we tried home care for my mom, and it was hard for her to have somebody in the house with her. She said to me once, you know, I would really love somebody around my own age to come in and take care of me. Now, she was 82 at the time. And I said, Mom, I don't think we're going to find an 82-year-old to take care of you in the house. But what she was really trying to say is, you know, I'd like to have somebody who's like me, who cooks the kind of food I want, who might sit on the couch and knit with me when all the work is done. That was her way of saying that. And in fact, that wasn't who the agencies were able to send, but it was just uncomfortable for my mom to have somebody in the house. And so we decided to give community life a try and found a community nearby that seemed like a good match. She continues to be really happy there, which is very nice. So we called your company to help with the move because I'd heard all good things about it. But that was my first time working with you, so did an amazing job, both deciding what she should bring, making the move, bringing some of the items that I wanted the chance to go through and sort on my own to my house, which was great, and then prepping the house for sale, which is, I'm not sure that everybody realizes that your services extend beyond just the move.
Yeah, and that's really where, you know, a lot of customers have benefited from us, because they run into that situation where they know they need that entry fee, they need that money, that equity that is in the home. So a lot of times it does come down to that, well, it's a whole house and I'm all by myself, what do I do? So that's where our tailored partnership of being able to recommend all the best assets for them, but also the game plan, because I think a lot of people they run into this experience sometimes unwillingly, like you were saying, you know, with a slip or a fall and coming out of rehab and realizing that they can't use the crutches going up the 4 or 5 stairs. So it's painting that picture for them to be realistic, but also there is a point where you deserve to spoil yourself. That's, I know, something that we talk about a lot, that seniors always, I'll get by with it, or I can get by with this, or I've always had the same couch, you know, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but the amount of times where it's worth just buying new sometimes. It's worth upgrading to that nicer piece of furniture. But do you notice there's a lot of times where you go into a home that it's unsafe or unfit for the person that's living there? Or?
Yeah, we do see that a lot. We see people who might be living in 2 rooms. They've got a big house and they're living in 2 rooms because it's all they can manage. So they maybe have got, a study and they've put a bed in there in the kitchen and the bathroom. So they're living in this much of a house that's this big, and heating and paying for and keeping the grounds for a big house, which they're not using anymore. We see that a lot. We see people with, they haven't really equipped their house to stay, so they might have stairs that they can't manage. I know people are fond of the chair lifts that go up the stairway, and I think that's good for some people, but that can also be tricky for people and not always safe for everybody. Grab bars that maybe are either not there or should be there and aren't professionally installed and don't necessarily. So even with my mom, I noticed she was using a towel rack as a grab bar, and that was not sufficient to hold her weight. So we see that. The other thing we see is people sometimes say, oh, and maybe their kids would say, we don't need a move manager, we can do it ourselves. And I always say, no, treat yourself. You said treat yourself, right? Yeah. It makes such a huge difference to have the help of a move manager. And when people are reluctant to spend the money on a move manager and they try to go it on their own, what often happens is they don't bring the right stuff, they don't put it in the right place, and they can't manage all the unpacking. Maybe the adult kids say, well, we'll do it, and then they're busy, they're working, they're not around to do it, and the new resident is living in a sea of boxes, trip hazards for sure. The air quality with all that cardboard sitting around for days isn't great either, and it's just depressing. So I always encourage people, don't skimp on move managers. Worth their weight in gold. And I know sometimes people need to conserve, but it's not the place, I think, to make this a success. You've got to do it right for moving.
And that's a lot of times what we experience is a lot of family members, they know they can do it and they know that they have the ability to do it, but it's really it's giving them the ability to be there for mom and dad in those moments, not having to be lugging around a couch. It's being able to help them set the kitchen up together. It's being able to help them, go out to lunch and enjoy this experience. Because in a lot of times, in a lot of cases, we hope that you're only going to do this transition once.
Right.
So do it for what it's worth. And as far as giving yourself that extra nice couch that you've been on the fence about.
Yeah.
But also, we do see it a lot. The floaters, they can coast from pile to pile as far as holding on to things instead of freeing up that space. So that's where I'm sure you come in very handy as far as being able to suggest those subtle things as far as like what to do and when to start downsizing. So.
Yeah. And we were just talking earlier about. So people could choose to spend a lot of money getting their house ready to age in place. But if that's not really the long-term goal, do you want to spend that money, or do you want to hold on to that money for your transition to community life? Yeah. And every family's different in terms of how they want to do it. But I hear what you're saying about maybe treat yourself to a new couch or a couple pieces of furniture that are right-sized for the apartment.
Yeah. Well, we want to bring the sewing machine. We want you to have the grandfather clock, the pieces that mean so much to you, and being able to sit down in home and being able to discuss that with people. I know that's a big thing that we both swear by is the in-home free assessments, just being able to go out in hand and suggest things, because it's one of the best parts about not being obligatory as far as flooding people with random emails or this and that and the other. We're very personal, the both of us, on hand, and being able to answer any questions that people have. So, so what's the best way if somebody wants to get in touch with you? Is there obviously, I'm sure your information is in just about every community, but is there a good website to reach you on?
So our company name is Oasis Senior Advisors, Central Connecticut.
Okay.
So you can easily Google that and find that. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. I want to give our phone number. It's 475-775-0212. So that's a text-friendly number. People can call, people can email, find us on the website. We're pretty easy to reach.
Excellent.
And I think we're fun to work with. I think people enjoy the opportunity to work with us. We're a small but mighty team of advisors, and can respond to people very quickly and help them quickly.
Right.
So.
And if you had to replicate on the number one emotion that you felt when you did experience the entire project of assisting your mother, what was the number one emotion that you felt after everything was done?
Huge relief. Huge relief. I lost many nights of sleep worrying about my mother. Is she safe in the house? She was really reluctant to ask for help. She didn't want me to know how badly things had gotten in the house. Such a relief to know that she was safe, that somebody was nearby if she had a fall, that she was getting 3 square meals a day, that this house, which was not in great shape, was no longer ours to worry about. Oh my goodness, yep. Huge relief.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what we look for. So if you're in for a huge relief, give Jane from Oasis a call, and feel free to go on our website or reach out to Amston for any other information that you need on her. And thank you very much for coming out, and it was great speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. You made that very easy.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.